Hi, I'm Jen Holz, Associate State Director for Outreach at AARP Maryland. We are continuing our efforts to support all caregivers of children during the pandemic by streaming our Lunch and Learn interviews through the rest of 2021. Our goal is to provide you as parents, grandparents, and guardians with practical ideas, tips, tools, and resources for distance learning and helping kids to thrive during the pandemic. School is in full swing, whether virtual, in person, or a hybrid of both. So keep joining us over the coming weeks to hear from guests with useful information about helping our kids to do their best. Please also visit our website, aarp.org/MD, to learn more about the resources in our state to support you and your kids during this unprecedented time. Today, we are joined by Cornelia Beckett, a program specialist at the Enoch Pratt Free Library in Baltimore. With a background as an elementary school teacher and children's librarian, she's passionate about facilitating programs and sharing resources to strengthen family reading practices at home. Today, she'll discuss library resources during the pandemic and bringing the joy of reading aloud into the home. Cornelia, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jen.
Let's first talk about what reading books looks like at this time. How have reading habits changed during the pandemic?
So we're 7 months in, and we're seeing a lot of really interesting data, both measurable and anecdotal. A lot of library systems have reported an all-time high in folks signing up for Ecards, which is a service that all library systems in the state of Maryland have, where even if you don't have a physical card, and even if you do have a physical card, you can use this, you can sign up online and you can receive ebooks, audiobooks, downloaded, even movies from your library system. So we saw an initial spike in usage of that. Certainly this year, we've also seen a large increase in folks reading and interested in and talking about books about racial equity. And many children's books are also being checked out as parents and caregivers are looking for ways to entertain and educate and enjoy this challenging time with the children at home.
That's great. Sounds super safe. So everybody can check out those books online. That's wonderful. Why should folks focus on reading together when there are so many competing things we have to do in a day and so many new routines to manage?
So we recognize that this is a challenging time, and for so many of us, that's why creating that shared escapist space together to read, especially together, whether that's an adult reading to a child reading to an adult, or even sharing in an audiobook is a communal experience. It's enlightening, it's escapist, it creates a culture of joy and storytelling in the home. Even for grandparents, maybe if there are any grandparents watching, if you are ever watching a grandchild and there's a special or shared book that's your story together, it creates a sense of ownership. And we, as Joyce Carol Oates, the great author, said, we tell ourselves stories in order to live. And reading great books can also help us contextualize what we're going through. For example, my hairdresser said that her 8-year-old daughter right now is delighting in reading all of the Laura Ingalls Wilder books about Little House on the Prairie, and kind of telling herself a story about, when we're hunkering down in our house this winter, it's kind of like Laura and Ma and Pa, while also sparking those conversations about, hey, maybe we conceive of ideas like the Old West a little bit differently now in 2020, and some of the attitudes we see there. So with so many, and also with so much screen time, although of course ebooks are on screens, that's okay too. It's still important to find a shared, pleasurable, and joyful activity that doesn't revolve around staring at screens together.
Absolutely. That makes so much sense. So thank you for that. And do you have any pointers around fitting reading into a typical day?
So we recognize that everybody's daily routine looks different. It might be shaken up. You might have more being asked of you to do than ever, working from home, supervising virtual schooling. So there are lots of little ways you can sneak in some time to read. Maybe if before bedtime isn't realistic for you, maybe at the breakfast table, you can sneak in a picture book or a chapter of a beloved novel. Maybe dinner time is the time for that. Maybe if you have to drive somewhere, an audiobook could go on in the background, or even for those days when you are just too busy and Netflix is looking like the evening activity, a really fun thing you can do is turn on the subtitles, because automatically children are just going to be reading those and making the verbal and linguistic connections just somewhat automatically. So, and if you need help accessing any of those resources, you can always chat with a librarian live, with us at the Enoch Pratt Free Library in Baltimore, or wherever your local system is too. Librarians are ready and on call to answer any questions you have about book recommendations or downloads, or even just reading for fun.
Great. Those are great tips. So, what is the adult's role in the child's media consumption habits? I know this is challenging for a lot of us. And how is reading or watching something together different from the solitary experience? Can caregivers model a culture of engaging with reading, authors, and the library, especially during this challenging time?
Absolutely. So we know that one of the number one predictors for children becoming readers is seeing that behavior modeled by the adults in their lives. So an adult modeling that reading for pleasure for themselves, their own adult books that they might like to check out on their own time, that's incredibly important. Reading together, having that shared experience, either sounding out together or a child simply listening to the adult in their lives read aloud to them, that's huge too. And then also creating a culture of engagement around reading. You know, we are a family who reads. Maybe we're a family who watches a writer go on Zoom live, sponsored by a library. And the Maryland libraries have been really great about getting some fantastic children's authors to Zoom in and programs. Or even, you know, if Instagram is your primary means of engagement, many children's authors on Instagram, and maybe your kid would like to send fan mail, or with your help and supervision, DM an author. I know my friend Kevin Sherry, who's a children's author and illustrator here in Baltimore, loves to feature his fan mail from young readers or the drawings that they might submit. So it's not just about the text, but it's about engaging with this whole culture of reading around. And as parents and caregivers, your role is so special, because it's not just the instruction that teachers focus on, but it's creating that love of and that joy of not just the act of reading, but authors, libraries, bookstores. However you can generate that excitement, it's been proven that that's what sets children on the path to being lifelong readers, which is our goal, right? So it can happen in so many different ways, digital, analog, whichever way you can fit it in is great.
I love that. I love how it's not just about engaging the caregiver and the child in this endeavor. It's about bringing in the authors, bringing in the library resources. It comes at you from so many different angles where you can, get those children engaged. That's great. So, how do you suggest that these folks engage with the many, many resources that the library has to offer?
So your pivotal point of jumping off is going to be going to the library's website, or all libraries are going to have an Instagram or Facebook page. Many programs are streamed live from Facebook, so whether you want to check out a craft program, an interview with an author, or even live music, the Facebook page is going to be a great jumping off point for that. You can also register for our programs on Zoom, on library websites. And Instagram is a great way to connect as well. We also have resources, even though many library buildings are closed right now, you can put physical books and other media on hold online and pick it up in a contact-free pickup with making an appointment. I know it might look different from county to county. For example, here in Baltimore, library staff are going to hand that bag over to you. Whereas I was speaking to a colleague in Montgomery County, where pickup just looks like going in, picking the bag off the table, no interaction at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then some other systems, don't quote me on this, but I believe Anne Arundel is experimenting with letting folks in for a little bit of light browsing to pick up the books yourself. That works too. So whatever that may look like, digital, analog, libraries are here to help. We have tons of resources, and we invite you to come check them out.
Well, that's great. It sounds like there are lots of options. So this has been wonderful. Thank you so much, Cornelia. Who knew that the library had so many great resources for our kids and their caregivers? So it's also wonderful that, of course, the Enoch Pratt Library System is available statewide. So no matter where you live in Maryland, you can benefit from the great tools that you guys have to offer. So thank you again for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Jen, and thank you to AARP for hosting.
Absolutely. All right, everyone, please continue to tune in every other Wednesday through December for tips and tools on caring for your children during the pandemic. Our next Lunch and Learn interview will take place November 4th at 12 p.m. Be sure to join us.